Hello, this is Ken at Personality Power for Everyday Living, and I thought today for this brief video I talk a little bit about extraversion, which is one of the functions that humans have and when they're looking at personality type. We're not going to talk about introversion, which is the opposite of extraversion, but we're just going to talk about extraversion today. First of all, you need to know that it's estimated that about 75% of the entire world is instinctively extroverted. This is something they're not choosing, they're just born that way. Extraversion has to do with energy. Extraversion, introversion has to do with where your energy is coming from. What do you naturally focus on? How is your energy instinctively and naturally directed? For extroverts, their energy is primarily directed outside of themselves toward other people and other things. They are more naturally active. Extroverts are more naturally, instinctively, I would say, expressive in their perceptions and their realities. They're more naturally social. I say this with love, but they have a tendency to maybe talk a lot and sometimes put their foot in their mouth. Think of it this way: when you are extroverting instinctively, you are naturally oriented to the outside world. In addition, you may have a tendency to tolerate noise, tolerate crowds, tolerate more people, more so than the extrovert. If you're extroverting, you have a tendency, as I think I mentioned, to focus on other people, other things. You prefer more to be around others than you do by yourself. You can do okay by yourself, but there's a natural tendency to want to be around others because that's where your energy is coming from. You may have a tendency, if you're instinctively extroverted, to talk more than listen. You may have a tendency when something needs to be discussed or understood or there's a problem to be solved, you may have a tendency to desire to talk it out rather than think about it for a while. You have a tendency to communicate with enthusiasm in all likelihood. You may often seek center stage, although there are several introverted types that frankly do that. You may have a tendency to act first and then think about it later. Kind of like instead of ready, aim, fire, it's ready, fire, aim kind of thing. You may have a tendency to interrupt other people and finish their sentences for them, although you're going to find moving forward that intuitives have a tendency to do that as well. So that can get a little bit confusing on this particular piece of criteria, but this is definitely something that extroverts do, have a tendency to interrupt. You may have a tendency to be interested in doing several things and projects at the same time. Typically, we'll have a very high enthusiasm demeanor. High energy level, I could also say, goes along with that. You're constantly always on the go. Sometimes it might be hard for people to find you because you're out there, you're doing something, you're on the go. You have a tendency to think out loud, talk through the ideas that you're thinking through while you're doing all this. You may have a tendency, if you're instinctively extroverted, to prefer talking face to face rather than being withdrawn and thinking about it. You're usually more animated. I think I referred to that, excuse me. You may have a tendency, if you're instinctively extroverted, to change subjects frequently. You may find yourself using trial and error with great frequency and confidence. And you're always looking around to be stimulated. There's always got to be something new. And that's a pretty good list. If you're doing these things, you may be instinctively extroverted. I hope this helps. Again, my name is Ken, and today we're talking about the extroverted function of the Myers-Briggs